On June 12, 2026, Elon Musk became the first human being in history to be worth $1 trillion. Not a billion, 1 trillion.
Well, Elon Musk is now the world's first trillionaire after what might be the most ambitious launch yet for his company, SpaceX. SpaceX went public today, and anyone can invest in the company. Trading opened at $150 a share, valuing the company at more than $2 trillion.
His personal fortune is larger than the entire economy of Sweden, larger than the GDP of the Netherlands, larger than the next 5 richest people on Earth combined. But before you understand how he got there, you need to understand where he came from. Because this story does not start on Wall Street. It does not start in Silicon Valley. It does not start with a wealthy family or the right connections. It starts in Pretoria, South Africa, with a quiet, awkward kid who spent more time reading encyclopedias than talking to other children. A kid who was so badly bullied at school that a group of boys threw him down a flight of stairs. He lost consciousness. He woke up in hospital. And the boy who lay in that hospital bed would one day own more wealth than any human being who has ever lived. This is the story of Elon Musk and the journey nobody talks about. Pretoria, South Africa, 1979. An 8-year-old boy sits alone in his room, not because he is being punished, because he prefers it. While other kids were outside playing, Elon Musk was reading Encyclopedia Britannica, Isaac Asimov, Douglas Adams, Tolkien. By the time he was 9, he had read the entire Britannica, both volumes. His mother later said he would just go quiet and then come back and tell you everything about a topic. But school was a different story. A group of boys made his life a nightmare for years. One day, they cornered him at the top of a staircase. They beat him, threw him down the stairs. He lost consciousness. His father drove him to hospital. His face was so swollen he was barely recognizable. Years later, Musk described those years as genuinely painful, not as a story, as a scar. At 17, he made a decision. He did not want to serve in the apartheid military. He did not believe in what his country stood for. He got a Canadian passport, packed a bag, and left. Canada was not what he expected. No money, no contacts, no plan. He cleaned boilers, worked on farms, completely alone, in a country he did not know, with nothing but the belief that somewhere there was a bigger game. Then, the University of Pennsylvania. Physics, economics. Got into Stanford. First day, he walked in. Second day, he quit because it was 1995, and the internet was about to change everything. He and his brother Kimball started Zip2. They slept on beanbags, showered at the YMCA 7 days a week. 4 years later, Compaq bought Zip2 for $307 million. Musk's share, $22 million.
I had no money whatsoever. I was working, doing research in Silicon Valley, and when it came time to decide, do I want to do graduate studies or do I want to start this company, and I decided to start the company, I had no money. As a graduate student, I would have received a scholarship and a stipend and so forth. In starting the company, I had nothing. I had no income source. So we found that an office was actually cheaper than an apartment in Silicon Valley. So we got this dinky little office that had a leaky roof. It was just the nastiest place you can imagine. This lasted for about 3 or 4 months. And the reason we chose this office, in addition to it being really cheap, was that there was an internet service provider on the floor below. So we were able to get really cheap internet access by drilling a hole in the floor and connecting to their server directly. I think the internet is the superset of all media. It is the be-all and end-all of media. One will see print, broadcast, arguably, radio, essentially all media folding into the internet. I think it's going to revolutionize all traditional media.
He was 27 years old. Most people would have stopped there. Musk did not even consider it, because this was only the beginning of his story. With $22 million, Musk invested everything into X.com, an online bank. It became PayPal. In 2002, eBay bought PayPal for $1.5 billion. Musk's share, $165 million. He was 31, and he was just getting started.
I'll tell you a lesson I learned at PayPal. You know who complained the loudest?
the quickest and the loudest and with the most amount of righteous indignation, the fraudsters. That's who complained first, loudest, and they would generally have this immense overreaction. That's how we knew they were the fraudsters.
Most people would have stopped. Musk split it 3 ways: 100 million into SpaceX, 70 million into Tesla, 10 million into Solar City. 3 companies, 3 industries nobody believed in, all at the same time. Musk wanted to send a rocket to Mars, not metaphorically, actually to Mars. Everyone laughed. NASA laughed.
Because I think this company's going to fail. I mean, I gave SpaceX less than a 10% chance of succeeding at all, to be clear. In fact, I told people this. I said, look, we're probably going to fail, but we should give it a try, because if we don't...
The first rocket exploded, the second rocket exploded, the third rocket exploded. By 2008, Musk had almost nothing left. He was going through a divorce. The financial crisis was destroying Tesla. SpaceX had 1 rocket left, 1 shot. He was borrowing money from friends just to pay his rent. The world's future trillionaire could not afford his apartment. Then, September 28, 2008, the 4th rocket launched, and it worked. SpaceX became the first private company in history to successfully launch a liquid-fueled rocket into orbit. NASA signed a $1.6 billion contract. 6 weeks later, Tesla raised enough money to survive.
Originally, I budgeted, I thought, okay, we can do 3, survive 3 failures. So we just barely scraped together enough to do a 4th launch. And then at the end of 2008, we got a big NASA contract, literally on December 23rd, I think it was. Okay. Yeah. So it went from really terrible to, I remember that Sunday before Christmas in 2008 thinking this is the closest I've ever come to a nervous breakdown. I never thought I would ever be someone who could have a nervous breakdown. And I didn't, but it was like, I could see it. I was within sight of it. It was like, this sucks. This is terrible.
But this was not the story of a man who got lucky. This was the story of a debtor with a vision who refused to quit, who refused to stop. And after 2008, everything changed, not because the world finally believed in him, but because he had never stopped believing in himself. In 2010, Tesla went public. Stock, $17 a share. Most analysts said it would fail. Electric cars are a niche product. This company will be bankrupt in 5 years. Tesla is now worth $1.6 trillion. In 2012, SpaceX docked with the International Space Station, the first private company ever to do so. In 2022, he bought Twitter for $44 billion, renamed it X, fired 80% of the staff, cut costs from $4 billion to $1.5 billion a year. In 2023, he founded XAI, his own AI company. March 2026, XAI merged with X, combined value $113 billion. And then, June 12, 2026, SpaceX went public on the NASDAQ. Ticker SPCX. Opening price $150 a share. Valuation $1.77 trillion. The largest IPO in human history. Bigger than Saudi Aramco. Bigger than Alibaba.
Celebrating its record-breaking IPO, a $75 billion offering. Some are calling this the greatest wealth-generating event in history. Minting the world's first trillionaire.
And in that moment, Elon Musk became the first human being in history to be worth $1 trillion. The boy from Pretoria, the kid who got thrown down the stairs, the man who borrowed money for rent in 2008. $1 trillion. So what do you actually take from this? Because this is not just a story about Elon Musk. This is a story about how the world actually works. Lesson 1. The biggest bets look like the craziest ideas. In 2002, rockets were a government business. Electric cars were a joke. Musk bet everything on all 3. Everyone laughed. The people who laughed are not in this video. Lesson 2. Failure is part of the process, not the end of it. 3 rockets exploded before the 4th one worked. Tesla almost went bankrupt twice. Musk borrowed money for rent at 37 years old. The difference is not that he did not fail. It is that he did not stop. Lesson 3. Nobody builds an empire alone. SpaceX has 13,000 employees. Tesla has 120,000. He received $38 billion in government contracts. The story of the self-made man is always more complicated than it looks. A boy from South Africa, thrown down a staircase at 12, borrowing money for rent at 37, worth $1 trillion at 54. The rules everyone else plays by did not apply.